So like today's topic is education, now and in the future. Now, because of the pandemic, a lot of parents are concerned about how the education system is going to pan out in the future. Sure, will schools reopen? Will schools not reopen? And at the same time, schools are looking at online classes. So there's a lot of learning curve there for parents, for teachers, and there's a shift in education as we see now from offline to online. So there are a lot of conversations, a lot of questions, a lot of clarity that we need, because it's like this is a sudden change for all of us. So keeping up children's best interest in mind, we want to have a discussion today so that it will help our parents, the parents who are joining us, and the teachers as well. I would like to introduce all of you to the panelists. We have Tasneem Messiwala. She's the co-owner and principal of Sarah International Preschool, which is located in Colaba. Hi, Tasneem. Thank you for joining us today.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. To give you a background about Tasneem, she has completed her graduation at HR College in marketing, and she's also an MBA from JBIMS with 30 years of work experience in customer service training and development. She is also a member of the Early Childhood Association Committee in the Mumbai territory.
Yes.
And she pursues social work through Giants Welfare Foundation for the underprivileged. That's wonderful, this thing. And she is happy to to be completing 10 years at Sarah International Colaba in two services, preschooling and childcare. Congratulations, Tasneem, for completing 10 years. And
very soon we'll be completing a decade.
Yes. When is that? The next?
Another 1.5 years.
Okay. So that's close.
We started with a parent toddler. So looking at the inception, we are very close to a decade.
Great. That's great to know. Moving on to our next panelist, we have Sejal Shah. She is the owner and founder of Ubuntu Montessori Preschool.
Good afternoon.
Yes. Hello. Hi, Sejal. She is a passionate educator with an experience of more than 8 years. Wow, that's wonderful, Sejal. And she's a certified Montessori directress. And in a short period of 3 years, it has grown from one class of 5 children to a happy family of more than 90 children. That's quite an achievement, Sejal. Happy to have you on the session today.
The pleasure is mine. Thanks so much, Nia.
Thank you. And we have all the way from Italy. So this is the first time we have someone from outside India joining us for coffee and chai. Welcome, Ruta.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. And, so Ruta is the founder of Mothers and Kids, and she's a child counselor and parent coach with 11 years of experience. She's dedicated her services for speech delay children and development issues in children. She works for various parenting related concerns such as sleep deprivation, diet, writing, concentration related concerns. And she has worked with many schools in Pune. So originally, Ruta, you're from Pune, and she was also a coordinator for Podar Jumbo Kids in Pune. And she has designed the curriculum for schools in Pune and also for mothers and kids. And she's conducted many seminars, webinars, training programs for parents, teachers, and educators. So let's begin, ladies. So I would like to start with Tasneem. I want to ask one question to all of you. So when it comes to the topic, future of education. So what are your thoughts, Tasneem, on the future of education, like in a broader sense? What do you think?
Well, the future of the education sector is always dependent also on the past. Like you have seen the evolution in the education sector currently, like we used to have the chalk talk method, the stage of the stage where the teacher's there with the blackboard and conducts classes and sessions during our time. Take out your geography book, go to page 5. Things have evolved over those times. We are moving ahead for the betterment and the evolution in education. The brain development in a child is also at a higher pace than what it used to be earlier.
Right.
As we say, these are the foundation years, and till 6 years, they are critical years where the foundation of the child has to be very grounded. So education also has to move complementary with the child's brain development. Now, when we are talking about going ahead, COVID-19 has definitely given us a change. We need to accept the change. And for the first time, we are acquainting ourselves in preschool education with a blended learning,
Right.
which is an online learning and a little bit of activities we give the parents to do at home, which is the offline learning.
Right.
But the future of education is definitely going to be positive. I always work towards the positivity of situations, and education is something which is very ethical. There is going to be a lot of positiveness in the education coming up, and we have to move with times.
Exactly.
We have a lot of important bodies circulating around this particular delicate issue, which is education. So I'm sure that they will be working on guidelines and the betterment of the children as they move to become holistic citizens.
Right, right. So, Sejal, what about you? What are your thoughts on the future of education?
So basically, I think that, the parents, the school and the teacher, they are like a holy trinity. And I think they all have to work hand in hand and in harmony to provide the best foundations for our children in their early years. Because the period of 0 to 6 years is the period when the child develops his overall personality. He becomes confident, he becomes independent, and the most important thing in this time is to teach our children life skills, more than learning the ABCDs and the 1, 2, 3, 4s. Life skills matter a lot. We need to teach our children to be empathetic and to be compassionate, and learn to take care of themselves and people around them, learn to socialize. And what this does is this makes them really responsible. This makes them part of the family. This makes them means I would like to treat them as young adults, who, yeah, because they need the so if we listen to them, if we respect them, that's when they truly blossom. So that is what I feel. And this current time of COVID, has actually given us a very good opportunity to spend that quality time with our children. So as Tasneem said, the future of education is bright. We always have to look at the positive side of what is happening. And I completely agree with her. And I think this is the only silver lining that I see during this situation, is the quality time that the parents are giving a chance to spend with their children. And I think we should make the most of it. And definitely, as educators and as school owners, we would like to empower our parents, how to go about it.
Exactly.
Because that is also very important, how to go about things. So that is what I have to say.
Thank you, Sejal. So Ruta, what about you? So you live in Italy, and things have gotten back in place there. Have schools reopened there?
Yes, schools already started, but for those parents or for those children whose parents are working for a longer time. So the schools are not started full-fledged, but in the school, I would like to share this thing with all of you, that in the school, poor child has given some place, okay, in a circle or one table. and a child supposed to sit there or move around the table. He will have his own toys, he will have his own books, he will have his own sketch pen box, everything for him. So the main motto of preschool is social skill development and emotional skill development. Schools has started here, but I can see that children are not happy and even parents are not happy because they just go there and they just spend some time. But some point it is good that when children go out and play in the garden, but still they need to wear mask and play in the groups. So yes, these are the current situation, but I would like to say that change is mandatory somewhere. And I personally believe that when you change and when you accept that change, the things become easier for you to understand.
Right.
Okay. So first of all, this online teaching, all the parents started that I don't know how I'm going to do. I don't know. The school owner started like, we are going to provide this thing. We are going to, all that things started at the moment. And but after some time, or after I can say 2 weeks, everything changed, and the common fear started. Common fear means there is a fear in parents. Maybe it's related to fees, related to their child's education, uh, something related to I don't have that many equipments at my home, and all those things. Fear in teachers about their jobs, of course, fear with non-teaching staff, of course, and fear with school owners as well, because the competition which is going. But
Right.
if I would like to say, if we accept that, okay, I am as a parent, if I would like to teach these things to my child, which the school is giving to me, there is nothing wrong in it, because the school is also thinking for the safety of my child, and even I want my child's safety. So I just think that if we
So do you think, Ruta, that schools in India will reopen soon? It's something that is highly unlikely, is what I feel. Based on that, so Sejal, you spoke about the importance of early childhood education and why it is important for the development and learning in the first 6 years, and the school of thought, Montessori, is something that believes in this, right? So if you could tell us, that being, how it's different to be to for a child to be at school, like Ruta said that if kids are going out but they're wearing masks, and they're not able to play, or they're not able to socialize as much as they would want to. So Sejal, what are your thoughts on this? What do you think is like how to basically ensure that kids don't stop learning, and because of the fact that they are not going to school, they are not interacting with other children and their teachers physically, so can you share some thoughts on that?
So what I feel in today's time is that there has to be a very good balance of parents spending time, quality time with their children. At the same time, parents allowing the teachers or their schools to spend certain amount of time during the week. It could be one session of half an hour twice a week, just so that the children are able to see their friends. Children get very close to their teachers, and for children so young, where they cannot express themselves, they cannot voice their concerns, that kind of makes them very agitated. But when they see their teachers, when they see the other children on the Zoom session, because nowadays parents really think that, oh, we are giving so much screen time. So basically I feel that the screen time has to be constructive and for the good of the child, and if you moderate it, then in that case, the child is also happy. And at the same time, we are able to balance the learning. Now, as a teacher and as a school owner, what we do for our parents is, for the parents who are really, because we do have a toddler program also, so we can't expect the toddlers to come online. But what we are going to do is, we are going to empower the parents on how to practice Montessori at home. You know, how to, you don't need to buy any equipments, you don't need to do anything extra, but how to do Montessori at home with the equipments that you have, by letting your child do day-to-day chores, letting him help you, letting him put his plate back, toilet training him, making him part of the family, and different activities that we send in. For older children, we do 2 Zoom sessions a week, wherein we will do, food prep activity. We will do story sessions with them, which are interactive. Because we can't, the thing that I've learned, because I'm not very computer savvy, but the thing that I've learned about Zoom session is that you have to be interactive with the child. Because the minute you keep talking and doing things, the child is going to run around. He's not going to be wanting to sit. So that interaction is very important with the child. And that's why the Zoom session has to be only very, for a limited period of time. I mean, it has to be a short session to get the best out of the session, you know, where the child is kind of being able to focus. And then you're empowering the parents, you're sending work, a plan to the parents, how to do, what to do at home. And I think the most important thing during this time is, besides the education part, we also need to teach our children life skills. You know, a lot of life skills, a lot of compassion. We need to be very patient with them at this kind of, because as you said very clearly, they are not able to see their teachers, they are not able to see their friends. Actually, they are here in Mumbai, they are not even able to go to the playground, because we don't know how safe it is. So forget about wearing masks. So they are basically cooped up at home, or at the most they might be visiting close family. So that's why right now is the time to be very patient with them. And for that, I would want the parent also to take some time off. Because if you don't take time off and you don't relax in your life, then you are going to pass on those vibes to your child. You know, so every parent can probably work for a bit. They can work with grandparents. They can do so many things around. And one last thing I would like to add is that to help in this kind of pandemic, following the routine is very important. Children have
schedule.
Yeah.
Have a schedule.
Yes, a schedule and a routine wherein the child does go to sleep at his, because of being at home, and because of us being at home, if the child today sleeps at 1, tomorrow wakes up at 10, another day, so he doesn't know what to expect. But if he has a routine, at least he can expect, okay, now I know what I'm going to do. You know, now is my creative time, or now I'm spending time with daddy, or now it's lunch time, or now it is time to take a bath. So that routine also helps children a lot, and it really reduces their aggression. So I think balancing out all this will really help parents. And I think parents and teacher community and the school need to come together, as I said before, to be able to give the best to the child, because the focus is following the child. It's not about you and me or us, but it's all about the child and, following the child.
Right. So a lot of changes happening in the education system, and rightly so, as Sejal and Tasneem said, that these are positive changes. Dear parents, we don't have to panic. So Tasneem, over to you on the question that since there's a lot of everybody needs to adapt to this change, right, Tasneem? So how are schools and teachers adapting to this change? I'm sure there's a lot of planning that goes behind it. So could you please share your personal experience?
Sure. So what has happened in Sarai International Preschool and Childcare Colaba is we stopped physically working in March, mid-March. And then we have our head office, which is the Eaton House Singapore, and the advanced groups who are there to give us the guidelines and how to move ahead. So we started talking with them and interacting with them. They sent a lot of activities online to us to give it to the students to do with their parents in their home, because we had to complete the curriculum for the academic year. So these activities went in terms of worksheets or maybe art and craft, some numeracy, and they were working on this. So this is the way it started.
Right.
Online was never in my mind that time, that what will be after the summer vacation, what's going to happen. And later when we started interacting with the head office, we got to know that there would be something like this coming up, blended learning and homeschool interactions. And I was, of course, a little bit surprised and a little bit nervous as how we are going to take it ahead, because it's going to be our first time experience as well. And later on with the communication and training, we did a lot of training and development during this phase when we virtually had holidays. So my teachers, the head office personnel, we got a lot of training on the curriculum, the communication, how we will communicate to the parents, the children, how we'll reach out to them. We got a lot of training on the Zoom application, which was a new word to me. I never knew what Zoom was, how screen is shared, how we have a whiteboard for doodling. So it made us very confident, all these aspects. This was a big change. Another thing during the situation which came up was my confidence in my teachers. The kind of teachers I have, they have been very experienced in my school. We have worked very participatively. It has never been an autocratic leadership. We've always gelled together, worked together, spoken together, and we are very free and transparent in how we move forward. So what we did, Neha, is we don't have a pre-nursery currently running. We are waiting for some more length of time till the pre-nursery children are more confiding, their parents are more confiding in the education, and we'll start. We have upgraded our teachers to the next level after they were trained in the curriculum. So the pre-nursery teacher is currently the nursery teacher because it was a rollover of the entire batch which went into nursery.
Right.
Okay, the nursery teacher has become the kindergarten 1 teacher. The kindergarten 1 teacher has become the kindergarten 2 teacher. So we have rolled it because they are seeing the same teacher, which makes the connect instant.
Right.
Right. And the other thing which we have worked around is the schedule. The kind of timetable that we have has to be very flexible initially. Let's not work too much on academia and ensuring that they know A to Z from the beginning. This is not the time. Music and movement, a lot of Hindi poems, understanding the teacher, especially new admissions, they don't know the teacher. So the teacher speaks after class also for 10-15 minutes with the child individually and interacts with the child. Where have you come from? And the child took the teacher around the closet and showed toys from the... See, there has to be a bonding created.
Right.
Road was no problem, but what about the new admissions? Everything is so distant now.
Right.
So we try to work into these kind of stepping stones. Another thing which can bridge the gap is when we have different people coming into the class whom they are familiar with. Like we have a dance choreographer, we have a dance teacher. She's very familiar with the school. So getting a lot of music and movement and, pepping up the children. We have a storyteller. I'm also the storyteller in the school, and I do a lot of stories with a lot of props and, just spreading smiles. We have a teacher who's also very much sure on academia. So she works into interview training, which will be again an anxiety mode towards the end of the year. Will the nursery children get into mainstream schools? Will my K1 child get into a mainstream school? So we have another expert who's also on the panel of our teachers. So different people are going to give their different expertise in this virtual education.
Right.
Things have not much changed in terms of ratios. We were always working in limited ratios, even in the class, having more batches, because that's what Reggio Emilia is about, inquiry-based learning. We have focus groups.
Right.
So we cannot have 24, 25 children like the way we studied in our school in the 1980s. It's different now.
Right.
So if in the Zoom, we prefer having 8 to 10 children for pre-nursery when we start, 10 to 14 children in a kindergarten 1, and having 2 teachers.
Oh.
Because of the technological glitch, the other teacher can take over.
Right.
So we don't keep just one teacher. We have another teacher to substitute in case there is a drag or there is a disconnectivity, then she can take over. So we are working towards...
That's an interesting insight, Tasneem.
Yeah.
So you spoke about, Tasneem spoke about how she went about, her school went about training teachers. I want to speak about how children are adapting to this change. So Ruta, can you give us share some insight on how children are, getting used to this whole new way of learning through online sessions and not going to school and meeting their classmates and teachers.
Yeah, I would like to say there are two types. One who love to be a part of this virtual learning, and the other one who are doing these sessions only for this competition. Now, let me throw some light on both of these points. One, who are learning, they are like happily, they are, meeting their children, their friends, their teachers, they are learning and they're enjoying. They are actually having a gala time, which I can say, with the teachers and with other friends. But at the same time, there are few children, they don't want to talk much, like on screen. They don't want to, okay, what is going on? Okay, something is going on. Let me do my things. Okay, children are moody because all children are moody. So it's even difficult for a teacher to maintain that virtual learning. And for parents, I would like to say that there are few parents who are, in this competition. Why I'm using this word? Because if a child is, if a teacher has given some activity to do at home, let's take the example of a worksheet. So if a teacher asks to color a worksheet or, do some painting on that worksheet, and a teacher also asks that parent to upload that worksheet, then what happens to is that the child always say that, oh, is my worksheet there? Okay, how many likes are there? Somebody commented on it. Is teacher is keeping that worksheet there, or what exactly the thing is? Then of course the parents are into the conversation, that long telephonic conversation, like, teacher gave this things, teacher gave that thing. Are ye school hai? They give lot of activities. It's very difficult for us to do all these things, and every time we just need to click the photo, upload it. It's time consuming thing. So I can say there are some positive parents also, and there are some this competition is also rising at the same time.
Right.
Can I add one thing to that? Is that what we do to overcome this problem is that, when we send out activities to our parents, we always send out activities that are in a group of that. Maybe for the whole week we send out the activities. So maybe there are 3 activities in one area of learning. Maybe in language there are another 3 activities. But we don't want the parents. So we are actually having a Zoom session with the parents to guide them how to go about this. Because we cannot expect that everybody will have the same resources at home, because last few months we were completely shut down. So they could not even go out to buy resources, right? So maybe a parent can do only one activity from each area of learning, but do that from the beginning till the end and without pressurizing the child. Because, overstimulating the child also is not going to work, because then they constantly are going to want to, okay, what next, So that's why to let the child explore freely, give them some freedom, because that's when they use their mind. What I'm trying to say is, when they're working with an activity, they have to also use their mind how differently to do that activity. That's when their brain starts working. But if a parent is sitting on his head that, no, I have to upload this, so you finish it this way, why did it go out? That actually kills the whole mood for the child to learn. And one thing is very important, according to me, is that when the child doesn't enjoy a particular experience, then they don't want to go back to that activity, no matter how much you try. It's as simple as, if your hand is not ready, if your wrist muscles are not strong, they are not strong to hold a pencil. And that time, if you ask the child to draw a straight line top to bottom or left to right, he's not going to enjoy that experience. And when the child does not have a positive experience, he is never going to want to do that again and again. So seeing the readiness of the child and offering the activity accordingly is most important, and not overwhelming the child because we want it to be uploaded, because we want other parents to say that, oh, his work is so good, is very, very important. So parents, we should always follow our child and see, because all children are going to blossom. Today, one child might do something after a month, and how does it matter? It doesn't matter. But when the child does that work, when he's ready, you will see the beautiful work that he does, and you will see the satisfaction on his face. And then when you give him anything new, every time he's going to take it positively because he'll have good experience with it.
Right.
That is something I wanted to add.
So, Tasneem,
Neha, just one more thing. What Sejal and Ruta has said, I want to reiterate on that.
yes,
That it is a new situation for us as educators and the facilitators and teachers. It's a new situation for parents as well. So during the orientation of our school meet, we had certain essential agreements where we breeze them through, so they know how to perform when we are online. I mean, don't interrupt. Like the teachers may be a little firm, so don't feel that you all are demeaned. So many things we have to make it very clear from the initial stage for a smooth session.
Right. So adding to the to something that both Sejal and Ruta had mentioned earlier is how parents are, very competitive when it comes to the children. Right, so Sejal very much defined the concern here that that parents should understand that they should take things easy, not force their children to do things. And it's been quite a challenging time for a child also. It's not just the parent and teachers and schools, but because suddenly it's different for our children now, because like Ruta said, that they're unhappy, they can't go out. Sejal, I would like to understand that one thing is, like you mentioned, that the competition is something that we need to, as parents, all our parents should, be aware of, be conscious about, and let their kids be, especially during this pandemic, because, things are very different for them. And of course, children take time to, adapt to things and get used to it. One very common question that parents, ask is how to get the children pay attention, because it's new to them, right? Like Tasneem also mentioned, it's new to them. Tasneem, she and her teachers, they do a lot of, other activities like, like dance, storytelling, and things like that. What does Ubuntu Montessori do to make sure that children, as young as 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, who are always full of energy and they don't sit at one place, how to get them to sit and concentrate on the learning sessions?
Sure. So at Ubuntu Montessori, children are going to be children, as Ruta said, that some children are going to be very well focused because they want to do the learning, and there will be some children who are not used to sitting in front of the screen and they don't want to be, sitting in front and doing in front of so many people. So you have to respect that. But in order to get their attention and in order to get them to enjoy the session, what we do is we always start with one of their favorite rhymes that they love to act it out. Okay, and that's how we start with the time. That's how we start the Zoom session. And the most important thing that the children have, what we have seen in all these months, they really enjoy doing a food prep activity with us. So basically, we always send out a list of things that they need to keep ready on a tray. Okay, and the mother is going to be around. I'm talking about the older children. Younger children always need a parent on the side, but we are trying to make the children very independent, and so the parent is around. But when we are doing a simple activity of making buttermilk, so the child has a small katori where the curd is kept ready. There is a small glass with water in it. There are 2 small vatis where there will be salt and a little bit of masala, pepper or something. And then, step by step, the teacher is doing it and the children love doing it. And then they will, make the buttermilk. They will enjoy it. The whole family drinks it. It's just such a fun activity to do. And once they are so interested, then will be the time for us to give them maybe some language, to do some vocabulary. And that's when we will start, because now they are completely focused. So now we will do some vocabulary, show them some flashcards, whether it's community helpers, whether it's flightless birds, whether whatever it is. And that also has to be very short, because now again, they are going to start getting restless. So that's when we do the professional storytelling session, the stories which Tasneem mentioned on the board with the props. We also always tell the parents the story that we are going to tell. And this is something we've just learned, that if we tell the parents beforehand, send them the story that we are going to tell them. And because children cannot focus very well on the screen, you can't expect them to continuously see and hear what you're saying. But if the children know the story, and then if you're doing it with props, it's easier for them to get engaged. So that is something that we've realized, that doing that really helps the child to get engaged in the session. And keeping the session short, as to half an hour, and not longer. Maybe sometimes it always goes on to 40 minutes, but that's about it, because that's enough time for a child to sit in front of the screen and then take a break. So this is how we have got the Ubuntu kids engaged, and the parents have been really happy. Parents themselves have come up with so many ideas, which we always are very transparent and trying to incorporate in our, because as I said, at the end, you have to see the child working, and we all have to work as a team to do what's best for the child. So
Right.
that is something that is important.
Yeah. So, Tasneem,
Yes.
when we spoke yesterday, what there's something common that most heads of schools and teachers are facing is the problem with the fees, right?
Mhm.
So I wanted to understand so that our parents also get an understanding from an educator as as prominent as you, that who's been in the business, who's been in this children education for such a long time. Parents want to know from an educator's perspective, from the head of school's perspective, uh, what the challenges that you're facing, uh, to get these online sessions, online learning, get them kick started, and to ensure that whatever changes, whatever adaptations that are required from the parents and from the teachers and from the schools, and right from infrastructure to the curriculum, uh, uh, what how would you like to address this issue of parents thinking that, okay, I'm not sending my children or my kid to school, why should I pay the fees, or should I pay the full fees? A lot of conversations and discussions happening on the fee as well. So since we have parents in our audience now and in the future also on YouTube, can you please address this for us?
Yeah. Sure. So basically, when we are understanding parents, it is very important as school heads, we have to be also sensitive to the parents. We have to be sensitive to our own issues, but we need to be sensitive to the parents to understand what exactly are the problems they are around. Like now, over the time, the kind of rollovers we have, the rapport is very personal also with parents. They pick up the phone and they say that this. So we have to take the entire situation case to case. Okay. Now, as the head of the school and the owner, we have done an EMI system. We were always taking fees per annum. We were taking 6 monthly fees, but now we have taken it quarterly. We need to understand from the parent what exactly is the issue so we can work out this. Fixed costs are very predominant. If the parents are listening to us, fixed costs are always revolving around our mind, which are the most heavy costs in the organization, especially when you're the owner. So we have the premise, which is again in a very good area in Mumbai. We have a big premise. The rentals are very important. I don't have a pedagogy and a curriculum of my own, Neha.
Mm-hmm.
For my personal situation, we are borrowing it from the Eaton House, Singapore. We have a franchise model we are working on. Royalties have to be paid. Our teachers have been a very important institution in our school, and they are mostly experienced. We have teachers who have a long-term relationship with us, and the teachers need to be appraised and they need to appreciated. So salaries are given at a higher rate, of course, to them. And why not? So there are different areas which we work around as far as expenses are concerned. Working capital, if we have working capital like a bus facility, I don't think it is right to take in advance. The buses have not yet started. We used to have snacks in our school, where in my kitchen, we used to make snacks for all the children. We are not giving them snacks. The mummies are cooking for them and the grannies and dads are cooking for them. So we can't charge for snacks at this point of time. We have to be sensitive.
Right.
So these particular areas we have erased while taking the situation live. And even the kit, the crayons, the felt pens, the worksheets we have printed, and we have given it absolutely complimentary to the parents for the 3 months. So in whatever way, as an educator and a sensitive human being, you can reach out to the children and convince the parents to continue the education and let the flow be continuous and not create a vacuum and a gap. We should reach out. We have got experiential sessions. If a parent is a potential, we say, come into the class. See what is going on. Don't have your apprehensions revolve around you. Come and see the situation live and experience it and then decide.
Right.
Even the June time, I think Sejal and Ruta will know, June, there's a lot of crying and so much instability with the little ones in school. But even those are challenges we face. Now they're not crying. They are with their mamas.
Right.
But everywhere there is a constraint which we have to tackle as collaborators, as parents, and as school management. That would make learning very beautiful.
Moving on to my next question to all the 3 of you is now you have some of you, so Ruta has told me that she's been following Kids OK Please on social media, and so I want to understand from your perspective, from whatever you know of Kids OK Please, what are your thoughts on our initiative with this brand to create children focused experiences? So can you, Sejal, can I start with you, please? What your thoughts are on Kids OK Please?
Absolutely. So from whatever I understood, that what Kids OK Please are going to do is, the part that I really liked was the experience, the real life experience that they were going to be giving children. There was one incident that Mr. Karan shared with me, that they invited the parents and the children at a coffee place, and they were going to see the whole process of how coffee is made and
Right.
the whole process. And I think that's a fabulous thing to do, because even at Ubuntu Montessori, our field trips are like that. One of our field trips was like that, where the car wash was happening. So we had told the parents to keep the cars dirty, bring them next day. The children came with their pail and raincoats and all that, and they were scrubbing these real life experiences are very, very important. So this part of Kids OK Please really appealed to me. I think it's a fabulous thing to do.
Thank you, Sejal. Yes, Tasneem.
Well, Kids OK Please, I want to start with the founders, because they are my very good friends over my management association in my studies. So I can say Kids OK Please is in very good hands. The strategy, the leadership, and the flow of the entire community forward will be very good. I also got an opportunity of introducing a nutritionist on the show, where I was the moderator, and it went very good.
Yes.
Because the topic of the program was immunity in children,
Right.
which is something which the parents are very anxious about.
Right.
And just getting these good experts, with quality information onto your shows, and having a different kind of an activity put to it, or something to take away, I think will bring a lot of halo around Kids OK Please.
Yes. So for all you people who wants to watch the video that we had published earlier about nutrition immunity in children with Tasneem and a prominent nutritionist from Zeen Wellness, please head to our Facebook page and you'll video there. Thank you, Tasneem, for
Most
sharing your
welcome.
thoughts. I would like to ask Ruta now.
Honestly, I have started following Kids OK Please just few days ago, I can say, because one of my friend Neva has given her live session with you.
Right.
And it was so nice to see experts live sessions on Kids Okay Please. Even I have seen two more. I have seen this nutrition one. It was very
Thank you.
yeah. So yes, I actually like the content which you guys are giving to parents, and to understand the parents. And as Sejal said, that practical experience is very important. And I am the one who is believe on this. And all, even in my curriculum also, I have designed the curriculum. I have given the activities which are all practically based. So without having a practical knowledge, it's very difficult for a child to understand things.
Yeah.
So yes, I even in my curriculum also I have designed the same things, and I really like the same thing is happening with Kids Okay.
Thank you, Rita. To add to what you all said so I want to say that Kids Okay Please originally was supposed to be an app, and because of the pandemic we had to push the app launch. To give you a little background, the three words Kids Okay Please, they stand for specific things, so for example, kids stands for experiences, so we have planned a lot of experiences. If you go to our website, you'll see there are some online offline experiences that we had planned, like visit to a cake factory, or a coffee house, or things like that, so that kids can get an understanding. They have that experience of being there, and seeing things being created. Then we started with the online sessions, where there are dance sessions, voice training, and art and craft, and a lot of things. So kids represents experiences, and okay is something that there's gonna be a listing on the app, which is going to be all the eateries, all restaurants that are child friendly and okayed by Kids Okay Please. So and then Please, of course, is where we invite brands to engage with the children, and with parents rather, and offer the best deals on and discounts, and packages for luxury brands and other children brands that are there. And a lot of things, we want to be inclusive, and we want to give access to marvelous childhoods to every child possible, and we want to create a community of parents and children specialists like you three, who can help parents, guide them, and just have a sense of belonging, because this is something that is not being done often. So we would like to take this opportunity to create properties like Coffee and Childhood, and then we have Kids Okay Please live on Instagram as well, where we invite people to speak about how to raise children the best possible way. So I would like to move on to the Q&A. So I have a question, quite a lot of questions. This is from Varsha. The parents themselves are working. Problem is that calling it empowerment. Some parents are just not able to make their kids do anything at all. How do you go about this? I, as a parent, feel guilty of not being able to sit down with him and make him study at all. Tasneem, would you like to?
Yeah, sure. I would like to tell Varsha that it is very important for you to have a schedule and your child to have a schedule. There should be some kind of time where it should be mummy and child time. And during that time, you have to give all your attention, and you'll have to work it mutually, the particular activity, what you want to do with the child. Another thing which really works with the children is motivation. Give them stars on their hand. Tell them about tomorrow, what will be the experience be, and you're going to do this, and then I will be giving you this. So it should be not something always objective, it could be abstract.
That answers your question. We have another question from Varsha.
I would like to ask, sorry, Neha,
go ahead.
One more point in this, that you don't need to find some time to teach your child. it's better that, you know, whatever you are doing, involve your child in that activity. Example is, if you are working in the kitchen, then, you know, ask your child to be with you. In that also you can, you know, teach your child.
Right.
So don't find any time. It's so because as a mother, even I do the same
No,
thing.
Ruta, here she didn't have time. She was working. She has no
Yeah.
time. That was the
Yeah,
issue.
but whatever she is working with, because see, though she's working, you know, her
Yeah.
once she must have finished with her
Blend
office.
her time into a situation and
Yeah,
let the
whatever
child
she
be
is
around.
doing, yeah, she in
Possible.
the household things, yeah.
Yes.
Another question from Varsha that I would like to direct to Sejal is, how do you make your kids interested in art and craft? I'm directing this question primarily because of the things that you mentioned earlier. So could you please answer that question for us, please?
Sure. So basically, it also depends on what age group we are looking at, because sometimes what happens is the child is very young and he really cannot do a lot of art and craft. In the beginning, when it's the toddler age group, they basically need a very thick brush or something like that, which they can easily hold because they don't, their pencil grip is not developed. So basically, he or she is just dipping it into a bowl of color and just splashing it across the screen, you know, and going up and down, left, right, things like that. When the child becomes a little older, that's when you can introduce more colors. There are also children right now who might not like to wear an apron while working, or who might not like to get wet. So this sensorial experiences are also very, very important for a child before he or she starts an art or craft activity. You know, trying to make them feel different textures, telling them to be, it's okay to be wet. Those are the kind of things that kind of make them ready for art and craft. And there will be some children who just love being messy and they just love art and craft. You know, for them it's very easy going. I'm talking about for children who are not interested. It's also, you have to see why they are not interested. Maybe they don't like getting dirty. Maybe they don't like getting wet. So then we have to work with those things first, give them those experience, and then involve them in art and craft. So I
Okay.
think that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. So another question that I have for Tasneem is, do you see subscription-based schooling clubbed with homeschooling as an option? Can you do piecemeal schooling option? So basically 20% participants per student each of the week, and the balance class takes place from home. You know, so what do you think?
I
Can
would.
this-
It's a mama who has posed the question.
No,
The
it's
mother.
it's a father.
Yeah, I mean a
Yeah,
parent,
yeah,
right?
yes.
Okay, so I would just like to tell that the parent is a very passionate and a very talented community in current times, highly educated, and they are very aware of everything around. But when it comes to teaching and facilitation, the dynamics change. The teacher is qualified for that specialization. They have structured learning. They have a very strong curriculum which they are depending on. They are facilitating in a beautiful way. They have a certain rapport with the children. There's a sequential and a pattern of learning which cannot be so easily taken up by a parent.
Right.
Here in the inquiry-based learning, even in Reggio Emilia, we have 3 teachers. The parent is the first teacher, your parent.
Wow.
The teacher is the second teacher, and the environment is the third teacher. If you work with the 3 facilitators, then the learning is going to be commendable for your child. Just keep that in mind.
Wonderful. Wonderfully put, Tasneem. Beautiful. So another question, the last question we have is, since the government has asked no online classes, how will classes go? So I think this is to do with the government.
They're coming to a negotiation.
Sejal, would you answer that for us, please?
So basically, we are, as Tasneem just mentioned, we are trying to negotiate with the government because, you know, the whole problem, the government and the parents think that the children coming online is really not good for their eyesight, or it's not good for their health. But on a regular survey, when that is taken, right now, currently, the parents are giving, at least 1 to 2 hours of unsupervised screen time to their children, because they are also in a situation where they are not able to spend time or things like that. What we are saying is, then, as Tasneem rightly pointed out, that we as teachers and as educators, we know exactly what we are trying to provide for your child. Our only concern is your child's growth. And that's why, I mean, I cannot go and do a dentist's work, right? Because I'm not qualified. The same way, we work really hard, and our teachers have a lot of experience, and we put in a lot of thought and in the process to make the curriculum, which is good. So we would really want the online sessions to be there, which are limited, as I said, for a limited short period of time. And if the government just doesn't allow us, or something like that happens, then we are also already working on alternative strategies, because we have to keep thinking, we don't have the luxury of waiting. So we are planning to provide kits to the parents, all the activities that will be going in, and fun sessions will be held. So one thing I wanted to add is that the government is saying that you cannot have education and constructive learning online, but then the parents are going and joining so many online sessions which are for different professional things. So that is also screen time. So I would suggest that you please trust your teachers. Let's all of us come together as a community and trust us to, because today, if they are not going to pay us fees, we are not going to be able to run the school.
Right.
And when
Right.
the school
Yeah. So exactly.
is supposed to go forward. So,
Exactly. So I would also want some thoughts on this topic about the government's involvement and the rules and regulations. So Tasneem and Ruta, both of you, can you please quickly share your thoughts on this? This will be the last question. We are running.
Here, the entire methodology adapted by certain schools was 2-3 hours online education for children, which has drastically gone wrong. Later on, with the understanding, we got to know that a 40-minute capsule or a 1 hour will work for the children in preschooling. And that is the kind of point which the government is working towards with the educators and the public. So even the Karnataka government had said till 5 no online, but there has been a little mediation in that, and they have come to certain terms. I just read something in the morning.
Yeah.
So they are also analyzing, and they're trying to work that ultimately children cannot be in vacuum. The flow of education has to continue. Even for that 40-minute, 1 minute, it's going to be a structured learning for the child.
Right.
So we are hoping for the best.
Same here. Yes, Ruta.
I can say that education is not a luxury, actually. It's a need. Okay. So it's important to understand that every child get that education, no matter it is online or offline. Every child should get an education. Okay. And so it is important that they have to pay their teaching and non-teaching staff as well. Similarly, parents also need to understand that, okay, as if I'm sitting with my child, it is completely fine. So education should continue.
So whatever happens, just like how we need to adapt to changing times, we should also ensure that learning for children doesn't stop, irrespective of what the if schools are opening or not opening. It should not stop, because these are crucial years, like you all have mentioned. I would like to conclude the session now. We've exceeded a time limit, so I really grateful to have you all here and share your insights and your stories with us. The insights from this discussion is that parents don't have to panic. A lot of positivity to look forward to, and there are ways to cope with this adapting times. There's a learning curve for parents, for teachers, and for children as well. and the schools are doing their best. The school heads are doing their best. The teachers are doing their best to ensure that children are being educated the right way, irrespective of these challenges. So thank you, Tasneem, thank you, Sejal and Ruta, for joining
Thank you.
us today. And it was wonderful having you here, and I hope to be in touch with you all.
Sure.
Thank
We
you
will
so
be in
much.
touch with all.
Yeah, and it was such a pleasure to meet both of you also. It was,
Same here.
Same here, actually.
Had a lovely coffee and conversation
yeah.
Wow.
about childhood.
Yes, indeed, indeed.